So everyone's talking about that high school, Carmel High School, whatever, that looks like a mansion, basically. It has a pool, it has ginormous stadiums, it has a cafe, it's a very equipped public school. But the fact that that's a public school just shows in a lot. The fact that some public schools look like that and literally schools down the street don't look the same proves a lot when it comes to what neighborhoods are favored. For example, in my county, my high school does not look like the rest of the high schools in the county. People say, oh, it's because yours is there longer. No, we've had schools that were built way, way before, but theirs are just better. They have more. Mind you, I come from the richest county in the U.S., but in my area, it's seen as ghetto and too many immigrants. So I'm not surprised my school looks like the bottom of the barrel.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about a video that is going viral of Carmel High School out of Indiana, a high school that really seems like a dream high school for those of us who weren't as fortunate to go to a high school that is as large and what seems to be well funded, you would think, and that has a lot of opportunities for kids growing up, okay? And the wokes are mad. They're upset and they're crying racism over this high school and the opportunities that this high school presents for children. And I want to talk about it. But first, I want to go ahead and play the video that is going super viral of this high school, and then we'll get into some of the reactions. Take a look.
Welcome to Carmel High School. Join us on a tour. This is the auditorium.
This is the Commons.
This is the catwalk. This is the planetarium.
This is senior hallway. This is our Carmel High School library.
This is the Oz hallway. This is the Carmel Cafe and Market. This is the back of the Carmel Cafe.
And this is our Carmel Cafe where we have Teddy.
And this is the Carmel Varsity Gym.
This is the new addition to the Hall of Fame. This is the freshman gym. This is the weight room.
This is the wrestling room, baby.
This is the blue and gold gym. This is the blue and gold track.
This is the field house.
This is the varsity tunnel.
This is part of our wall of success.
This is our natatorium. This is the hallway of fame. This is our 3-story freshman center.
This is CHTV.
This is our live radio.
This is the yearbook room.
This is the auto shop.
This is the wood shop.
Main cafeteria.
This is the bookstore.
This is one of the many cooking rooms in Carmel.
And this is the Decker room.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that, okay? That looks like a very cool high school to go to. It looks like the dream high school that any kid would want to go to growing up. And unsurprisingly, because it's the internet, you have people that are hating on the fact that these kids are allowed to go to this high school, and a lot of these kids happen to be white in the video, right? So you already know what's coming next. The cries of racism is racist. You already know what's coming, right? This is what they do every single time. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and roll the clip.
This viral video, which shows a group of students in Carmel, Indiana, showing off their high school, is an example of racism.
This is the planetarium.
I know you're wondering, like, yo, how is this an example of racism? All right, let's talk about it. If you're black or non-white in general, give me a 1 in the comments if your high school looked like this, and let me know if it was majority white or not. Give me a 2 in the comments if your high school did not look like this at all. Now, why is it that most black folks and other non-white folks are adding 2 in the comments and not 1? And even if they're adding 1, it's because the school was likely predominantly white. It's because predominantly white schools receive $23 billion more in funding than non-white schools. And it has everything to do with this country's racist past and present. Schools are primarily funded by property taxes, meaning if you live in a wealthier area, your school probably will look like that as well. Why the huge discrepancy? Well, you have the unresolved legacy of slavery, and you also have the unresolved legacy of Jim Crow policies. When white folks started buying homes after the Great Depression in the 30s and 40s, the government was throwing money at them and giving them loans, whereas black families were denied and placed in red lines on real estate maps, which led to the creation of ghettos. So during that time, white families are able to build even more wealth with having that foundation of buying a home with a loan, having greater access to economic resources anyway, and employment, which means they're paying a higher property tax rate, which means their schools will also then have more funds. So it should be no surprise then that as of 2010, Carmel, Indiana was regarded as the wealthiest city in Indiana. That's where this high school is located. And they're also known for disproportionately pulling over black folks.
Yeah, so you guys seen that, you heard that, okay? All that sounds great, except school funding doesn't have a damn thing to do with why this school is so good or why it has so many resources and facilities for students, because contrary to what you might think, this school actually does not receive more resources than a lot of other schools in the state. In fact, it doesn't receive more funding than the predominantly black Baltimore City School District, which receive about $17,000 to $21,000 per student. Okay, I want y'all guys to remember that. The predominantly black, illiterate, right, non-math doing students of Baltimore receive $17,000 to $21,000. Now, on the other hand, Carmel High School receives about $9,600 per student. Okay, they spend $9,600 per student. Baltimore City schools, like 20 plus schools where kids can't even do math, okay, at grade level. Zero, none of them, right? No kids at the school can do math at grade level. Versus Carmel, okay, we're going to talk more about their academics in a little bit here. They spend only $9,600 per student. Baltimore City, $17,000 to $21,000. I want you guys to understand the disparity here, right? The racist disparity that the woke revolutionaries talk about so much. The success of this school has nothing really to do with property taxes or funding or anything like that. It comes down to the fact that the money is actually being used properly, and also you have a good community with a good culture, right, with low crime that also supports these kids and the students. And I think that's the reason why you see the success here. This is why they can have nice things. So without further ado, let's read here. A viral TikTok video of Carmel High School outside Indianapolis, Indiana, has sparked a revealing conversation about school funding and school performance. The video, which had over 34 million views on TikTok and Twitter as of Wednesday morning, shows a group of students giving a tour of their massive and well-manicured suburban campus. The school's facilities included a sizable gleaming auditorium, an auto shop, and a planetarium. Critics quickly argued that Carmel schools must be better funded than worse performing Indianapolis city schools. When you see this and then look at the other publicly funded high schools in Indianapolis, you realize just how blatantly racist Indiana is, wrote one Twitter user in a post with over 9 million views. Quote, a lot of us know very well what's it like to go to high school primarily made up of trailers, while knowing that those in rich neighborhoods had state-of-the-art facilities, another user wrote. However, Carmel High School spends significantly less per pupil than public high schools in Indianapolis. According to the Indiana Department of Education, Carmel High School in 2020 spent between $3,500 to $6,000 less per pupil compared to the 4 public high schools in Indianapolis. Okay, so they spent $3,500 to $6,000 less per pupil compared to 4 other public high schools in Indianapolis. So they're actually spending less money. Well, how do they spend less money and are able to get these nice things? Well, let's read here. Even with this massive spending gap, there are marked differences in performance. At Carmel High School, 71% of students are proficient in math and 89% are proficient in reading. In Indianapolis city schools, only 6 to 26% are proficient in math and reading, respectively. Indianapolis public schools are failing, but it isn't for a lack of money. Wow. Wow, who would have known? You can't throw money at this problem, right? You can't throw money at a problem. You can't spend money and all of a sudden students can magically do math and they can read. That's not how it works. But that's the only solution that the wokes have. Oh, it's racist. We need more money. Well, you already have more money, right? How's it racist? Oh, well, it's white supremacy, right? Something like that. As it turns out, the correlation between funding and school quality is extremely weak. According to one 2012 report from Harvard and Stanford researchers, and on average, an additional $1,000 in per pupil spending is associated with an annual gain in achievement of 0.1% of a standard deviation, but that trivial amount is of no statistical or substantive significance. Yeah, so basically it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. Further, one 2019 analysis of National Assessment of Educational Progress test scores found that 6 of the top 10 states that improved their average test scores on the NAEP, the most were among the 11 states with the smallest funding growth. Conversely, New York made the same progress as Michigan while revenues grew by nearly $10,000 a student, a 76% increase in raw dollars. Michigan's unadjusted funding growth over the period was 26%. The comparison was even starker when looking at state-by-state examples. In 2019, Utah spent the least on education in the U.S. with just $7,811 per pupil, according to U.S. News and Report. Neighboring Wyoming spent almost $10,000 more per student, shelling out an average of $17,018 per pupil. Despite this gap, the two states have remarkably similar student performance. 44% of Wyoming's fourth graders are proficient or better in math, compared to 42% of Utah's fourth graders. In reading, 38% of Wyoming's fourth graders are proficient or better, while 37% of Utah's fourth graders are. It's not apparent what the thousands of dollars in extra funding are doing in Wyoming's public schools, but it doesn't appear to help students learn better. Yeah, which is the whole point, right? That's the whole point. Okay, but again, the money doesn't magically help these students learn how to read, write, and do math. It's very simple. Why doesn't more money always help schools improve? Mainly, the answer is that failing yet well-funded schools often simply aren't spending their money wisely. Quote, more money can help schools succeed, but not if they fritter those extra resources in unproductive ways. Jay Green, a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation, told Reason. Quote, there is no one formula for how to spend money correctly in schools, but there are many common ways that schools blow resources. Wasteful schools tend to hire more non-instructional staff while raising the pay and benefit costs for all staff, regardless of their contribution to student outcomes. If you fully disconnect compensation from performance, you can raise salaries and benefits endlessly without anyone learning more. Facts. Again, you have teachers getting paid or getting bonuses or getting rewarded that don't actually produce, aka they don't have students that can read, write, and do math well, that can pass tests well. They're not performing well, but yet they're getting rewarded for it. Okay, they're spending money on, non-productive things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, and a lot of BS. Again, it's about corruption. It's about how you spend the money. It's not about the money that you get. It's about how you spend it. A lot of these so-called underperforming schools, right, or these underfunded schools, they're not actually underfunded. They're simply mismanaged. They're corrupt. They're getting a whole lot of money. They get more money than most of these schools. But yet, again, the money and the resources is being spent in the wrong way. And that's the problem. That really is the issue. Now, again, in terms of why they can't have nice facilities and, all this other stuff that Carmel has, well, I think a lot of that has to do with the broader community. Okay, the culture. Two-parent households, okay? I think that, having good people in the community, by extension, they're going to be in the schools that actually really do care about the kids, the families, all that other stuff. Yeah, there's going to be less corruption. They're going to say, hey, we're going to use the money right. We're going to have, state-of-the-art facilities. We're going to spend the money on this instead of, again, paying teachers that don't perform well. I'm just saying. It's not really that hard to figure out. While making good spending choices can help close some of the gap between affluent and non-affluent schools, it's worth noting that student poverty has a large effect on school performance. At Carmel High School, for example, only 10% of students are eligible for free or reduced prices lunch at George Washington Community High School in Indianapolis, 66% of students are eligible. I mean, that's just kind of what I was alluding to, right? I think more so than anything, when the community itself is a good community, you know, they're wealthier, they have more money or whatever, students are going to perform better generally. And again, you're going to have money being used in the right way. Once you have all that stuff kind of combined together, it works out as, you know, right, then you get Carmel High School. That's what you get. Often, these advantages are difficult for schools to address, as low-income children often face a disadvantage long before they begin school. For example, one report from the Brookings Institute found that almost half of all low-income children are not ready to start school at the age of 5. Thus, it's unlikely that two schools with very different student populations can end up with the same results, no matter how much money gets spent. Yeah, because it's the parents, right? Here's the thing about learning. Student performance can probably be predicted by how well parents go out of their way to educate their kids, probably in the first 3 or 4 years of their life, right? If parents are in a kid's life and educating them and teaching them, again, in the beginnings of their life before they go to school, they're likely to do a lot better in school. I remember growing up, my mom would read to us, okay? She would make us do math. I mean, I would go into first grade already knowing how to do multiplication, stuff like that, being able to read. That puts you ahead of the game. And that carries you throughout the rest of your career in school. Again, a lot of this stuff comes down to the parents. It really does. Because again, no matter how much money you give to these schools, if the parents aren't doing a good job at home, then it's not really going to matter. But again, that takes personal responsibility. And the wokes don't want to take personal responsibility for anything. That said, high concentration of low-income students doesn't necessarily mean that a school is bound to be low-performing. Many charter schools outperform local public schools even without much lower per pupil spending, and in many cases, more low-income students. The difference is that charter schools are incentivized to make good fiscal decisions because parents can leave if they feel their child needs aren't being met. Yeah, they actually going to spend their money wisely, right, and efficiently. Because charter schools are more accountable to parents for results, they tend to use their uses more effectively in ways that accomplish the results parents are seeking. Green added. Yeah. If you are a so-called race crusader, I don't understand why in the world are you not pro-school choice. You should be pro-school choice or homeschooling if you are a race crusader, because that's the best way to address the alleged disparities that exist that don't allow for these low-income, you know, parents or households to be at home and educate their kids, right? Because they got to work multiple jobs and stuff like that. Charter schools help balance that out. But again, a lot of these race crusaders are opposed to that. They're opposed to the conservative solution to this problem. As long as parents, especially low-income parents without the ability to move to another school district, only have the option of sending their child to a local public school, it's difficult to imagine irresponsible spending habits changing anytime soon. Unfortunately, existing public school systems have practices and policies that tend to divert extra money to things that do not improve student outcomes, Green says. Some schools, especially in the private and charter sectors, where they are more accountable to parents for results, have adopted better practices and policies that get more bang for the educational buck, which is why we can see some very high-performing schools that spend relatively little. Yeah, so school performance being tied to funding is a myth. It's BS. We don't need to throw more money at the problem. There needs to be culture change in these communities, and we need more school choice. Right? That's what we need in these low-income neighborhoods. It's really that simple. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.